It's spotted, yeah?
Hey Tommy, you're wearing pants, right?
What's that? I'm comfortable.
Busted.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, there you go.
Cool. Are we ready to start, yeah?
Start.
Yeah.
Start.
Good to go.
Right. I'd like to thank you for inviting me to talk here today. I hope my presence speaking hasn't caused. Are we starting?
No.
We're ready, yeah?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll make a point at me there. No, right. So thank you for inviting me to talk here today. I hope that my presence speaking has not caused too much alarm and distress for your social justice warriors at your university. Fortunately, I'd love to be there in person. I'll get on more to speak about why I can't be later in this discussion. Who am I? My name is Tommy Robinson. I'm 33 years old. I'm mainly known for opposing Islam in the UK, and I'm born and bred from a town called Luton, which is just north of London. Luton, let me tell you about Luton. Luton is one of the most multicultural and diverse towns in Europe. I've seen some literature from your university, people saying that I'm a white nationalist or a white supremacist. That couldn't be further from the truth. I see no supremacy in anyone's colour of their skin. In my hometown, I've been brought up with every single culture, identity. Majority of my friends are from St Lucia, Jamaica. So this, the start, somehow, that because I oppose Islam, I'm a white supremacist, is ridiculous. All the white supremacist groups, or the white pride groups in the UK hate and despise me. I'm known as a race traitor, a Zionist. More on Luton. Luton was rated the roughest town in the UK. It's one of the most deprived areas in the UK. I'm not here to pull the wool over your eyes. I'm very honest. I answer all questions honestly. I've been no angel in my life growing up. I'm from a real area in a real town with difficult problems. About 30 to 40% of my town is Muslim. It was the home of the launch pad for the 7/7 bomb attacks, the fertiliser bomb plot, the Stockholm bomber, all radicalised and bred in Luton. Most recently, just a number of months ago, there was 2 young Muslims from my hometown who were planning to behead an American soldier in the UK. I could, as I said, I'm known for opposing Islam. I could sit and talk for 2 hours on Islam, on multiculturalism, but what I'd like to speak to you about today and use this opportunity for is a discussion on free speech and the police state that I live in. And to ask the question, are we free? The country I thought I lived in, prior to 2009 when my activism started, is a very different country to the reality I do live in. I thought I lived in a free country, with free speech, with democratic rights, where you're allowed to oppose and protest whenever you want. By the end of my speech, I think many of your views may change on the way our country is policed to what your previous views would have been. Since becoming an activist, I see 3 levels of activism. Level 1, disbelief. Level 2, disappointment. Level 3, acceptance. As I continue talking, I think many of you will be in level 1, where you'll be in disbelief at the stories I'm about to tell you, the things that have happened. That's what I was in. I was in level 1. I couldn't believe the things that were happening to me and they were being allowed to happen. Then you'll be in disappointment, which I've gone through, which is disappointment in the legal system and the law and the state that you're trying to protect and stand up for, but it is trying to destroy you. And then acceptance. Acceptance where I'm at. I accept we live in a post-free speech era. I'll start off by telling you how it all began. This all began with a soldiers' homecoming in Luton in the year 2009. When our soldiers were marching home, as they were given the freedom of the city, of our town, they were attacked. They were attacked by this Muslim organisation, Mujahideen. Approximately 80 Muslims. They were spat in their faces. They spat in the soldiers' mums' faces. They called them butchers of Basra, murderers. The police stopped 330 other Muslims in the town that day, 60% of whom were fallen abroad. This is a direct attack on our armed forces. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I'm going to stick to the free speech and the police state issue, but this group had caused so many problems in my town for years. They're now a prescribed terrorist organisation. They weren't at the time. After this, my hometown is always known throughout the UK, throughout Europe, throughout the world. The American security services called it the hub and the hotbed for extremist Islam in Europe. Now, everyone always talks about Luton as terrorists. That's not who we are. Now, that's not who I am. I love our armed forces. The people of Luton love our armed forces. So I wanted to organise a rally in support of our armed forces. When we went to do so, it's the first time I've organised a demonstration of this. When we went to do so, we were met that day by police officers in riot shields. We were stopped. I was stopped in the street, cameras in our faces, police put their hands in our pockets, made to take our shoes off, made to give our names, held for 2 to 3 hours. Women weren't allowed to go to the toilet. My friend, a little black lad called Isaac, we made it clear again from the start that white nationalists, that extremist groups, white supremacists were not welcome. So my friend held a banner that said, "National Front, go to hell." We want to make it clear that we are as opposed to Nazis as we are the Islamic extremists. And National Front are a white pride organisation in the UK. Now, he had his teeth knocked out by a police officer. My uncle was flattened by a police horse. Now, when you put the contrast for the way the police dealt with us as a community on that day, growing up, the way they deal with the Muslim community. For example, when these 80 radicals were spitting in our soldiers' faces, many of these men are now in prison on terrorism charges. They weren't met with any force by the police. They were protected, in fact, by the police. The police didn't even look at them. They certainly weren't stopped. They certainly weren't searched. Their women were not harassed. So what this then became was more about equal rights. As I said, you can just go on YouTube and put in Gaza war protests, where we continue to have these Gaza war protests in my hometown, where thousands of Muslims march through the streets saying bomb, bomb Israel, where the police walk along with smiling faces with them. So the contrast was there, very clear for us to see. After this demonstration, this is the first demonstration, I was made aware straight away of the tactics and what they would do. The disruption and the intimidation. The police made 14 arrests of the people from our community who come out to support our troops that day. All the people were arrested on public order offences. In the UK, that's basically swearing. They were held and then given bail conditions. This will become a common theme of my talk, bail conditions. Conditions used through fabricated charges in order to prevent people's political activism. These bail conditions were not to enter Luton Town Centre 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 3 months. Now, one of the houses the police went to, out of those 14, was my mother's house. I wasn't there. This was the first time, first of many as you'll see, where they'd gone and raided my mum's home. I wasn't there, I stayed away, we held our second demonstration. Now, after our second demonstration, where we actually managed to get to the war memorial, I then rang the police to hand myself in, because obviously they'd been and raided my mum's house, they're looking for me for a public order offence. Theresa May, who is now our Prime Minister, she was the Home Secretary at the time. Prior to me calling the police, she had put a blanket ban on any marches in the town of Luton for 3 months. When I ran up to hand myself in, the police told me, "Oh, we don't need speech anymore." And the reason for this, which became apparent, was because it was a fabricated charge to put bail conditions on to prevent me going into the town centre, to limit what we were attempting to do, which was to stand up against these Islamic extremists. Now, does this work? These sort of tactics, when they were 14 of our friends' houses, the police did, it does work. It installs fear. These people didn't do anything wrong. None of them in the end got brought to book. None of them got brought to court. The same as me, I had no case. This was just the start of intimidation tactics. And it does work, because I had friends at that time who took a back step. When they start seeing the police getting involved, people getting arrested, it scares people if you've got a career and you've got jobs. So after this, we then organised a third demonstration in the town. All in Luton at this time. We were a group called United People of Luton before it spread into the English defensive. At this time, there was a lot of problems happening in Luton. There was a lot of firebombings on houses. There were mosques being firebombed. Tensions were running extremely high after the soldiers came from the parade. The police didn't believe us that we cancelled our demonstration. Now, as a resident of Luton, and I love the town, I didn't want to see the town burn. I was under the impression that if we held a third demonstration there would be riots. So we cancelled it for our own choice. They turned out riot police across the whole town. The word spread to the Muslim community, the police were out, so they thought then there was a demonstration. They came out with rockets, fireworks, bricks, and they rioted against the police. Sorry. They rioted against the police. Now, this morning, my cousin, Kevin Carroll, who was the founder, my joint founder of the English Defence League, at 6 o'clock that morning, the police went through and raided his home. He was arrested for the original soldiers' homecoming parade. When the Muslims were spitting on our soldiers, Kevin Carroll called them wankers. That's what he was arrested for. He was 40 years old, never been in a police cell before, never been in trouble with the police, worked his whole life, and here he is being dragged out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning for calling a terrorist attacking our armed forces wankers. Again, this was simply used, and it was specifically chosen for this day to prevent a leader of what they thought was going to be a demonstration which wasn't happening. Later that day, I'm driving through town, and the cameras have obviously picked up my car. I've been pulled in and arrested. I'm arrested on suspicion of driving a stolen vehicle. The vehicle I was driving was on finance from Brandon, from Vauxhall Motors. Okay? When I was arrested, they seized my car, and then again they raided my mother's house, looking for number plates apparently. They dropped all charges of this the next week, but this was now the second time in a number of weeks my mum's home has been raided. And all because of what? That's what I asked. It's all because of what? Because I organised a walk in support of our armed forces. That's the reality of the charges were dropped. This becomes a common theme as well throughout this speech. The charges keep getting dropped. Although it does instill fear, the police's job is not to instill fear. The police's job is to uphold and protect people's freedom to protest, not to instill fear and try to prevent them from protesting. We're now 9 months into the English Defence League. The English Defence League spawned from the United People of Luton. It spread like a wildfire across the country, at times in chaotic scenes. It spread like that because people have felt oppressed and silent and scared to speak out and express their criticism and their fear of what's happening to their country. All of a sudden, I started this organisation where we weren't scared, and we weren't pandering, we weren't to political correctness, and we were speaking honestly and openly, and it lit a fire at the moment. We're now 9 months into the English Defence League, and the Scottish Defence League is now forming, and I'm going to give a speech at this demonstration. I get to Luton Airport, I'm arrested by special warrant. I'm held on a criminal damage charge. When I'm held on a criminal damage charge, I'm taken to Luton Police Station. They then tell me that they're going to be raiding addresses that are linked to me. They send 10 to 15 officers to my wife's home, where my daughter is. My wife was pregnant at the time. With armed police, they send 10 to 15 officers to my mother's house. For the third time in 9 months, my mother's home has been raided. Now, let me explain the criminal damage charge, what they said. You know, in a hotel room, in a hotel corridor, there's a little metal bit that joins the two doors together. When I got to interview, a £30 bit of metal was broken on a door and in a hotel that I stayed in. Now, I was bailed on this criminal damage charge. When I was bailed, I was given conditions not to contact the English Defence League, not to send an email promoting any demonstration, not to use social media promoting any demonstration. The date I was bailed to was the same date and time that I was due to be speaking at an English Defence League demonstration. For me, this was a very, very opening eyes to the fact that this is all politically motivated. This is all the police being used to silence and stop what we were attempting to do. Now, after this, I put in a complaint with the IPCC, Independent Police Complaints Commission. I said I believe that arrest was unlawful, bail conditions unlawful. What I wanted to know is how, for a £30 criminal damage, you get warrants to come and raid both my homes, both my family's homes. They seized my father's computer, who's 60 years old, who's run a business all his life, pensioner now. You seized his computer. Their warrant was allowed to seize electrical goods. Because of that, one police officer spent 6 hours going through my files, writing down, copying everything. Now, I want you to sit and think for a moment what it would be like for you and your wife. If you've got a wife, what would it be like when this happens at home? Because most people say, oh, you get raided. It's a lot more than that. It's a scary experience. And it's not just that, it's the shame of it, and it's the awkwardness for where you're living with your neighbours. My wife was distraught from this. Again, 3 weeks later, the criminal damage charges dropped. Everything's dropped. Through the IPCC complaint, it turns out 2 years later, I get the evidence, that the manager of the hotel had given the police a statement prior to them coming and raiding my home, that the person that broke the door was not a resident at the hotel. He'd given them a statement telling them that it wasn't me before they come and raided my home. And I see this as police tactics to build up pressure and to intimidate into silence. That's what was happening here. Now, this is the third time in 9 months that my homes are being ransacked by the police. 3 months later, 6 o'clock in the morning, bang, my door goes again. Now, I run downstairs, and I run downstairs at this moment because when I hear my door going, I was actually quite relieved to see the police, because at this time I've built up a lot of criticism from members of the Islamic community. I've received, I'll go more into depth with that later, but my life has become in danger. So when I see the police, I was quite happy to see the police for that moment. But the police officer said, "I'm sorry, Stephen." And I said, "You're just doing your job." And I put my hands out to be handcuffed. And he said, "We're here to arrest your wife as well." My wife was 6 months pregnant. My daughter was standing there. As I start talking about this now, I get emotional and angry. And so if I sound angry in this speech, it's because I'm going to be reliving all the things that have gone on, which I feel are completely unjust and haven't been dealt with. She was 6 months pregnant. The lady who ran my daughter's nursery lived in the road. The fallout from this, my wife wouldn't take my daughter to the nursery after that. We had to move after this raid. This raid was for tax evasion, money laundering, and no, that was it at the time. They added mortgage fraud later. I was put on conditions after this raid, which lasted 4 years. The conditions were that they restrained all my assets. This is the 4th time. They restrained all my assets. I was put on a financial restraint. Now, at this time, I'm 25 years old. I'm running 2 successful businesses, employing 12 people, turning over hundreds of thousands of pounds a year. I own 7 properties. So I'm successful and I'm very driven in what I'm doing. Now, my drive and my passion at that time in my life was making money. They seized all of that overnight. They used laws that were given to them by the Labour government, the equivalent of your Democrats, who brought in laws to actually tackle terror. But here they were using these laws against me. Now, I was put on a condition that I was only allowed to spend 250. This had the biggest effect on my life, if I'm honest. I was only allowed to spend £250 a week of my own money. At that time, I had £40,000 in the bank. So they took the money, and all I'm allowed to live on is £250 a week. That's impossible for someone who's used to living out of those means. The court order prohibits me from spending more than that. If I spend more than that, then I could face 18 months in prison. For 4 years, I sat on my backside. For 4 years, I wasn't allowed to work or further, or I'm quite ambitious, and I was always in my life, I'm always planning, at that time, planning what I'm going to do next, what I'm going to do financially, business-wise, and it's gone overnight. And it's gone overnight on false charges and fabricated charges. My wife had to sit an 8-hour interview when she was 6 months pregnant. The police told her she's going to get 7 years in prison. She was not. When she's come out, she was distraught. You can imagine the effect that these sort of things has on your family. That's the reason why all of this is happening. All of these things are a way of implementing pressure upon me to stop me and to silence me. It hasn't worked on me, that then started targeting my family members. And of course, I had many times, I said to my wife, don't give me the ultimatum. Don't make me choose, because what I'm doing is morally just in trying to highlight the issues and the things that happen in our country. On top of this, after this, I go to watch Luton Town. We're a very small football club, but I love them. Yeah? We go to watch soccer for you guys. We go to watch them. And I've gone to a game. I've been arrested outside the football stadium on a separate charge. Again, another charge. I faced no charges. It was again dropped. But when I asked for bail for this charge 2 months later, the police further arrested me for swearing at the football match. swearing at the football match. Now, I couldn't work any of this out why they're bothering doing this. But then they got me through, at the after swearing, where they gave me a 3-year ban, and I got a map given to me. And in this map, it highlighted where the Muslim community live in Luton. It's an area called Berry Park. And the map highlighted the whole entire perimeter of Berry Park. They've now given a 3-year order where I wasn't allowed to walk anywhere where the Muslims live for 3 years on Saturdays. I wasn't allowed to my hometown centre. And all of this is so-called swearing. So this was an example of legislation implemented for football being used to stop me walking through the Muslim community. Now, over the years, literally everything, in these early days, everything and anything. I was getting married, and the evening before a wedding in England, the men meet up and they go for a meal together. there was 28 of us going for a meal, and the restaurant, there's an area called Harpenden, and it's a beautiful place near Luton. Luton's a bit of a ghetto, and people go there to escape and have a nice time there, because it's a really beautiful area. So that's where we had the table booked. The manager of the restaurant rang me up and said, I've got to cancel your booking. This is the day of the meal. I've got friends coming from different countries to my wedding. I've got to cancel the meal. I said, why? She said, we've just had the police in. So I said, look, before you carry on, can I come and see you? And I drove straight over to meet the manager of this restaurant. When I walked in to see her, she said, you? And I said, yeah, because I've been going there for years. And to be honest, as I said, a lot of my friends are black. And in this beautiful area called Harpenden, there's no black people. So if people are going in there in groups of black lads, then it would probably be quite noticeable. So over the years, we go there. She said, I've just had the police in here telling me you're far-right racist extremists and that there's a potential for violence if you come and use the venue. You come here all the time. I said, I know. But this, again, was just, even your everyday life, this was about, I couldn't even enjoy the day before my wedding because of stress and pressure put upon me from police tactics. Now, when I started this, and I started speaking out and telling the truth about Islam, I understood full well that I was going to get violently attacked. I understood full well that my life would be in danger. And if I'm honest, I wouldn't say I was ready for it, but I expected it. What I wasn't ready for and what I didn't expect was the full weight of the police state and the law to be put upon me. And that's been the most difficult thing for me to deal with. Along with this, because of my activism, I've received 6 Osman warnings. An Osman warning is a government police warning. Government police warning where they have intelligence that someone is going to plan to murder or... Yeah? So I've received 6 of them. My cousin, the police went to my cousin Kevin Carroll's again. Muslims went to his house with a shotgun. He got away. After that, we had to meet with the police, and they offered me and Kevin new identities and witness protection programs. This is 24 months into the English offence. Now, what have I done? What have I currently done to now be offered to go into hiding for the rest of my life? I've simply told the truth about Islam. That's all I've done. All I've done is speak out about Islam. And here I am getting offered no identity and to go and hide for the rest of my life. But part of that deal from the police would be that I'd have to obviously stop my activism. It's not in me to hide or to run away from a problem. Now, again, it's all when I talk all about pressure. Now I'll talk about the reason why I'm not sitting with you today, why I can't come to America currently. In 2010, I tried to travel to America, to New York, to pay my respects for September 11th. I was held at JFK Airport for hours. I was told straight from the police there that the British authorities had basically told them not to let me in. Now, I've travelled to America 3 times prior in the previous 2 years. So again, what's changed? What's happened now that I'm not getting into America? I've simply started telling the truth about Islam. That's it. That's all I'm doing. And 2011 comes. Pamela Geller, who's a lady who I've met, I've become to admire for her beliefs and her fight for freedom. She was holding a rally against the Ground Zero Mosque. Now at this time, I knew that I wouldn't get in, so I made a decision to fly to America on my friend's passport. I knew what I was doing was wrong. Yeah? I thought if I'm already just to be honest, the way I saw it was that the stories I'll talk to you and tell you about, well, I can talk to you and tell you about, are not what I've read about. Yeah? It's what I've lived, growing up in a town plagued with the problems of Islam. Now, I just wished that someone come to my town, my country, 20 years ago, and said, this is what's going to happen, guys. Wake up, get ready. Yeah? We might have been able to do things to try and prevent it. So I felt that my message to America was that important, and I knew full well, in fact, I expected to be put in prison in America when I'd done this. But to be able, obviously, to be able to get a message out there, to be successful with what we've done, what we've attempted to do, you have to be prepared to do so. You have to be prepared to go to prison. You probably have to be prepared to accept you're probably going to get killed for this. Now, when I got to America, I got in. I got in on September 10th on someone else's passport that doesn't really look much like me either. I'm pretty gutted actually, but I thought, oh, I'm better looking than him. But it was, okay, I spent 2 days in New York. I gave a speech at the conference and I travelled home. 6 weeks later, I was arrested on the M25 in England, the motorway. I was held by British police. I was automatically remanded straight to prison for this offence. I read the intelligence, and the Americans didn't actually want to do me, probably because I thought it may be embarrassing for them that this had happened. But I was put on solitary confinement. I spent 22 weeks on solitary confinement. I was sentenced to 10 months in prison for that offence. If I'd known I was going to get 10 months in prison, I wouldn't have spent 2 days in New York, but at least spent 2 weeks there. So, with after this, when I've gone into the prison system, I've been held for mental health issues. You're only allowed to spend 28 days on solitary confinement. Now, to get around that, what they did, and solitary confinement is 23.5 hours a day, you're locked in a room, on your own, you see no one, they open the door, they give you food, you're allowed to walk around in a cage, on your own for 30 minutes. That's it, every day. To get around the laws, after 28 days, they took me from one prison, and then moved me to another prison, back on solitary confinement. 5 different prisons. Now, to understand the threat and attack that were being used at this time in prison for me, the reason they said they put me on solitary was because they couldn't keep me safe. Fair enough. Fair enough. So to get me from A to B in the entire prison had to be shut down. For me to have a visit, I had a whole entire visiting room on my own because of the serious threat that they felt was against me. And I don't know if they were worried about me getting killed. Well, I don't think they were. I think they were worried about, at the time, the reaction from English Defence League supporters. The English Defence League was very big at this time, it was very explosive at this time, and I think they were worried about what would happen after that. I've now come out of custody, and Lee Rigby's been killed. Lee Rigby had been beheaded by Muslims in London. At the same time as this, I have a charity walk planned for a young girl, Amelia May. Beautiful young girl, she was 2 years old. Unfortunately, she passed away from cancer. We were trying to raise money for her, so I was doing a sponsored walk. Now, because Lee Rigby had been killed and the barracks was Woolwich, I decided to walk from the 7th Memorial across the whole of London to the Woolwich barracks. Now, the police come to see me. Scotland Yard comes to see me in Luton the night before my charity walk. And when they come and sat me down, they said, "Can you please walk around the borough of Tower Hamlets?" I started laughing. I said, "What do you mean walk around the borough of Tower Hamlets? Tower Hamlets is the biggest borough in London. It's also got the most dense populated Muslim community in London." Now, when they said walk around, we're talking about a 7-mile detour. When I said why, and they said basically because the Muslims don't want you walking through there. The Muslim leaders had come out and said they didn't want me walking through the borough of Tower Hamlets. Now, I said, "I'm not about it." I said, "Are you telling me or asking?" They said, "We're asking you." I said, "Well, no. I'm going to walk the shortest route across London. And if that takes me through an area that there are Muslims in, I'm not really that bothered. It's just another road in London to me. It's my capital city. It's my country. I'm walking wherever I want." And he said, "But there's a lot of mosques that you'll pass." I said, "I walk past 8 mosques every Saturday on my way to watch my football team." I live in Luton, but this is nothing new to me. Now, on the day of the charity walk, you can watch this footage, the videos, I'm going to put links up to videos, all these things I'm going to talk about, there's videos to show. And this video, you have to watch it, because the police are walking with me. Now, they slow down, and they allow 2 men to come in, right as we get to the border of Tower Hamlets. Just as we arrived at border Tower Hamlets, these two men assault us. Now, we don't stand back, we put our hands up. The police allow the men to walk off. They then hold us, put their hands on us, and then they arrest us. And when they arrest us, they can't even tell us what they arrest us for. It's got an earpiece in. And basically they've been told don't let them walk into Tower Hamlets. And they're now enforcing that. Now you may be thinking, the policing in the UK is very different to the police in the United States. The police in the UK are pretty much bullied at many times. They're scared. Why are they scared? They're basically scared. Political correctness runs so high. The cry of racism as well is powerful. But if I give you one more example, I'll give you an example. There was a demonstration we were holding in the Birmingham area of the UK. Now, I read online that a Muslim had hit a police officer with a brick. He'd been arrested. And when he got arrested, the Imam and 200 other Muslims had gone up to the police station and had demanded his automatic release. And I read online, this was on the left-wing blog, I read online that the police let him go. I couldn't believe that. So when I next had my meeting with the Birmingham police, the hierarchy of the Birmingham police, to discuss our demonstration, I said to the police officer, I've read this story online. That can't be right. He said, no, that did happen. I said, what? What do you mean that happened? You let him go. I said, hold on, so who controls the streets of Birmingham? It's not you, is it? It's the Imam. Why did you let him go? He said, well, we have to, as police, we have to play our situation. And the Muslim, and in fact the far left are very aware to this. Mob rule does work in the UK, unfortunately. It does work. So they play our situation. He said, if these 200 Muslims decided to kick off the police station and it sparked into a race riot, that race riot wouldn't just kick off in Birmingham, but it would kick off in Bradford, it would kick off in Birmingham, it would kick off in London, in other cities across the UK. So when we're looking at that, or we're looking at the prosecution of one person, we let him go. That shocked me. But these are the tactics. So when they arrest me on my charity walk because they don't want me to enter Tower Hamlets, because the Muslims have basically told them, oh right. So then what's easier? Is it easier to try and protect me as I walk through this Muslim enclave? Or is it easier just to arrest me? But they arrested me for obstructing a police officer in the line of duty. This video had 1 million views in a day. Even people who disliked me watched it and said, he's just been assaulted. He's doing a charity walk, he's been arrested. Now, this is when, as well, in the UK, the Crown Prosecution Service was supposed to get the evidence from the police. The two are supposed to be separate. The police give them the evidence. If there's enough evidence, you get prosecuted. Now, this shows a blatant collusion between the two, because there was no evidence. The evidence showed that I'd done nothing wrong other than we got assaulted. We broke no laws. I was then charged, taken to court 3 times. The reason for this was because I was given bail conditions. Bail conditions that lasted months. The bail conditions I had, not to enter the borough of Tower Hamlets. But the whole time, whilst I waited to go court, there's now this zone, the biggest borough in London, I'm not allowed to step foot inside. For no reason. When this got months and months later before a judge and the evidence was shown, it was kicked straight out as not protected. This was just a blatant, and what I realised was the police don't care that the world's watching. This is a Metropolitan Police Force, the most respected police force in the world. They don't care that everyone's watching. They're now fearful of what's going to happen. Now, I had, after this, because of this reason, I felt the police were creating a no-go zone of Tower Hamlets for me to walk through. I organised an eventually demonstration in Tower Hamlets. To prove a point, Tower Hamlets is there's so many problems there. I'll put the videos up after this on my Twitter account. There was an American student who was violently, savagely beaten for drinking alcohol in this borough. There's been women harassed and attacked and violently attacked for Red Cross births. There's been operative gap in that community. Now, when we tried to organise our demonstration there, the Home Secretary said we weren't allowed to. We weren't allowed to enter the borough of Tower Hamlets again. So we challenged that in the High Court. When this went to the High Court, the leader of the police, the head of the London Police, come to court and he said, we're not concerned by the actions of the English Defence Team. The problem we have is that we can't control what's waiting for in Tower. So for me, this was alarming because it's Tower Hamlets today. Where's next? Birmingham, Luton, other cities. what you're basically saying is that no one who wants to criticise Islam can come and criticise Islam in that entire borough of London. And that entire borough of London is just going to grow and grow and grow. So, we held our demonstration at Aldgate East, which is on the border of Tower Hamlets. We weren't allowed into Tower Hamlets. But at this point, my bail conditions have now been lifted, so I'm free, if I want to walk through Tower Hamlets. After we held our demonstration, as soon as I walk off stage, the police asked me to come and give them a hand with some supporters, and I'm arrested again. I'm arrested because my speech, they said, went 6 minutes over the allotted time. Yeah? Again, completely fabricated, nonsense charge. But guess what? I was given bail conditions not to enter the borough of Tower Hamlets. This went on 18 months, these conditions, this court case. So again, these are police laws being used in order to create zones to limit people's freedoms. When I talk about the police being in fear, again, you'll watch this video that I'm going to upload, but my family rang me and said that gangs of Muslim extremists, in fact terrorists, I can call them terrorists because they're now in jail for terrorism, were following my family in their car. So, they were driving home. I jumped straight in my car and I was racing to get to the house. I was with my friend. All I knew was that some of these men are the most radical and feared Muslims in the UK. Here they are following my family. Now, the reason why they're following my family is because of me, because of what I'm saying and what I'm doing. I drove up there. I'll be honest, I had a balaclava in the car. And I said to my friend as I'm driving up there, when we pull in this road, we get out, we go 100 mile an hour straight out, for whatever's happening. Because I'm thinking they're there to target my family. This is what's happening. They think they're going to get my family. So as I put the road, this happens. And we pull up in the car, screech out, and I run straight at them. And surprisingly enough, these actual Muslims that love death more than we love life, and all want to see their 72 virgins, actually started running away when we come running in. But then more and more of them have come. This is outside the road. The police have then turned up. The police have turned up, they've arrested me, my cousin, and my uncle. They've left this bang mob of 20 Muslims, no joke, you'll watch the video. As I'm getting handcuffed, I'm actually saying, what is going on there? This is our family's house. This is where we live. They've come up to our house, and now we're being arrested. The reason they said they were arresting us was to prevent a breach of the peace, to basically get us out there, because there was too many of them. When I got interviewed for this offence, I was held for 36 hours. When I got interviewed, 6 weeks prior to this, there was 6 Muslims, and they were trying to track me through my mobile phone. Now, they had guns, bombs, IEDs, swords, suicide notes, and they planned a terrorist attack to kill us. Yeah? They turned up 2 hours late. There's actual footage of them walking where we were, but they got there 2 hours late, yeah? With all the guns and bombs in their car. But they didn't have insurance on their car. So on the way home, they got pulled over by the police for having no insurance. The police didn't search their car. They impounded it for no insurance. When it's been impounded, that company that opened the boot and found all these guns, suicide vests, and everything. So when this has happened 6 weeks prior, we've then got some of the country's most radical Muslims who 5 of the people that were there are now serving time for terrorism. Outside my family's home, in cars, when I get to interview, I'm sitting there quite happy thinking they're all going to get done because they all had weapons, they were probably planning to kill people. When I said, what did you find on them? I could tell straight away by the police officers failed. I said, you haven't even searched them, have you? And she said, why would you search them? I said, what do you mean, why would you have searched them? They had weapons in their hands. Yeah? I said, I told you they had weapons in their hands. I said, my cousin was filming it, as I told you. Do you know what the police then did? They went and raided my cousin's house looking for the phone. They didn't get the phone, and you'll see this video of me being handcuffed, telling the police, look at them with their weapons. But this is, again, shows the level of fear and the automatic reaction from the police, which is to automatically go for the easy option, which is us. Now, the original case that I spoke about when they arrested me and my wife, when my wife was 6 months pregnant, we were bailed on tax evasion. I've now come to stand trial. Yeah, first of all, my wife, let me talk about I'm my own person, and so is my wife. My political views are not shared by my wife. She actually hates what I do. Yeah? Yeah. She doesn't like what I do. The amount of times I've had, you can imagine all the things that happened. The amount of times I've had my mum, my wife, crying their eyes out, begging at times, begging it. But I feel I'm righteous in what I'm doing. Yeah? So I've had this tax case. My wife's been on bail. The police said I owed them £137,000 in tax. That would mean I didn't pay tax on £400,000. Yeah? I didn't owe them a penny in tax. I knew that. So they've dragged this on for 4 years. They've closed my businesses. They've financially bankrupted me at the time. They've made my life so difficult. I get to court, within half hour, my case is dismissed. Now, the next case is mortgage fraud. Now, I know I'm not getting done on this either. I know. So, as this is all building up, I'm thinking I'm going to have my day with you because you've just destroyed my life and you've done it for nothing. On completely fabricated charges that you've managed to put all these conditions on me for 4 years. Now, as soon as I got not guilty for my tax case, straight away, in court, in front of left-wing groups, like the Muslims who are sitting there watching, they then set a date. That we want to set a date for Jenna, who's my wife, to stand trial for tax as well. Yeah? So I've just been found not guilty. They've got no case on my wife, but let me explain to you the life I live. You just have to go on YouTube and Tommy Robinson attacked. You'll find video after video after video of me being violently punched and beaten around my hometown every time I walk through. Yeah? Now, I don't go out with my wife. I don't go out with my children. I have to live two separate lives. If I'm travelling somewhere, I go in one car, they go in another. Yeah? Because I'm constantly confronted. My wife hasn't luckily experienced any of this because I live for two completely separate. The biggest fear I have is for my family, obviously. And I would never want my wife to have to walk with shoes on. I don't even tell my wife some of the things that happen when I'm out and about. This year, she's been given a tax day. Well, she wasn't even in court. I'm in court. So they set a date. I then have to go home to my wife and explain to her, darling, you're in court in 2 weeks, in Crown Court. Yeah. It's a court case is very stressful for Anna, for me, for my wife. And this is all, there's no case against my wife, this is all about pressure, to build pressure on me at the time. So I tell her, you're in court in 2 weeks. She's crying, she's distraught, and she's terrified. Terrified because she knows, and I know, that if she walks into that courtroom and she's photographed, the newspaper are there, the media are there, this is the end of her freedom as such. She's now going to have to walk and live the life I live. She's not going to just walk through the town centre with my children anymore. She's not going to be able to go to the shop with me. She won't be able to walk to the school in peace anymore. So I know that, and like a game of chess, and I also know at the same time, this is not, the police don't want my life. Yeah? They want me. What they did over this investigation, this 4-year investigation, they raided my nan's house. When I went through their investigation, they'd gone through every member of my family, my mother, my father. They've gone back and got court orders to go back through every bit of their finances and everything they've ever done for 10 years and look for Annie. For example, my brother-in-law and my cousin were pulled in, one of my other cousins were pulled in on not paying tax on things they sold on eBay in 2006. Yeah? Nothing charged. But they were bringing all of them together. So one big court case with all of us, with me involved in it. Now, a lot of my family, because of the fear, we all live in Luton, which has a lot of problems, a lot of my family would not even want public knowledge to be that they're my family. Because it could be detrimental for them, for their safety, for their work, etc., for their careers. Now, here's my wife now about to stand trial, and I know all of this. As this is building through, I said to my family, look, I know what's going to happen, okay? There's no case on me. The case they had on me was for mortgage fraud. I lent my brother-in-law £20,000 in 2006. He got a mortgage, and on his mortgage, he said he earned a bit more than he earned. Yeah, that's self-certification mortgage, that's all he did. He bought a property and sold it 6 months later. That's it, the bank will pay back. That's the case they've got against me. I know I'm getting prosecuted on that. But my family are crying, and at the time, I go for the answer. By crying, you're letting them win. Why sit in front of me and not to sit and see your relatives who are male, 33 years old, 34 years old, crying their eyes out. Yeah? Crying their eyes out of what's being put on them, simply because of what I'm doing and saying. That's it. So the pressure, again, it's pressure. That's all this is pressure. All this is about is pressure. Now, the same night as this, the same night I've gone home and told my wife, you're in court in 2 weeks. 3 o'clock in the morning, counter-terrorism comes to my house. They deliver an Osborne warning. Al-Shabaab, who 8 weeks prior carried out one of the most historic terrorist attacks in the Indian shopping mall. Al-Shabaab have named me on a video to be killed at all costs. Now, any of you lads think you've been in the doghouse, yeah? At this moment in my life, my wife was sat down. I've been told to be in court in 2 weeks. Now, the most feared terrorist organisation in the world want to kill you. And the police left me with an Osborne warning, which said I'm not allowed to get any weapons to protect myself. If I am, I will be prosecuted. Basically, put a little chain on my door. Yeah? So I know you guys have legal right to bear arms. I wish I could do, because I'm left at home with 3 children and a wife, and no way at all to protect. Now, that's. And at the time, I discussed. At the time, I'm wondering, have I been named in an Al-Shabaab terror unit, or is this simply more pressure tactics? Because they know, and I know this. They know that at this moment, my family's breaking, yeah, because of all the pressure from this court. I said to my wife, when I get to court, Jenna, they're going to offer me a deal. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to get offered a deal where if I hold my hands up, you will go home. Yeah? I know what's coming. I know what's coming in. I got to court, and the first deal I was offered, I'd have got 5 years in prison. So I went outside, and I've got all this documented on tape because I had this with me. I went outside, I rang my wife, I said, I've been offered a deal, you're all going to walk, none of you are going to have to go to court. She said, how long are you going to do in jail? So I'm going to get 5 years. Yeah? Now, she went mad, and that's the first time she didn't want me to do that. Yeah? And I'm glad, and I went back in and said, I'm not taking a deal, okay? I'm not taking a deal, I'm going to trial. They then took me into trial, they swore the jury in, 3 Muslims on my jury, 3 Muslims and a PCSO, which is like a 10 police officer in England. So, here I am again, they've sworn me in, ready for trial, just before the trial starts, because the police know I'm getting a not guilty if the trial goes ahead. Just before the trial starts, they pull me back outside. Plead guilty to these lesser charges, to this amount. Now, for this sentence, I've got 80, but the maximum I could get 2 years in prison. So I then have, as a father and a husband, I then have to weigh up. Do I go sit in a cell for 9 months, because that's how long I serve? Do I go sit in a cell for 9 months, or do I let my wife walk the walk I have to? Do I put my family members through the stress and pressure of these court cases? So, for me, it was a no-brainer. I'm taking the deal. I took the deal, and again, I'm not pretending to you I've been an angel in my life. If you do wrong, you should be done for things. I didn't do this. What I stood and had to plead guilty to, which I was then in prison for 18 months, I didn't do. That's the gospel truth. And this was a point now where, for a mortgage fraud offence, where the bank, there wasn't a victim, it's a victimless point. For a mortgage fraud offence, in England, you go to an open prison, you have your own key to your room, and you go home on weekends, yeah? I was transported to a prison called Wood Hill, security prison. In this prison, it houses some of the country's most feared terrorists. Now, compared to what happened in my previous prison sentence, when I was in solitary confinement and no one saw me, I was this time fed to the lions. As soon as I landed on the first night cell, an ex-Royal Marine, who was a prison officer, he opened up my door and said, when they come to get you, do not leave this cell, your life depends on it. So I sat, what now? Yeah? 20 minutes later, my door opens, and it's the same Royal Marine Commando with 2 prison officers. And they said, come on, you'll go and be with him. I said, I'm not going anywhere, mate. So because I refused to leave the cell, I was arrested. Again, I was arrested for breaching the order. That same Royal Marine come back to me later and said, do you know where they were taking me? I said, where? He said, you know the 6 Muslims who are doing 30 years for trying to kill you? I said, yeah. He said, they're putting you with them, on the same wing as that. Now, for me, I'm on a no, and someone's putting, because when you go into a prison system in the UK, they have a duty of care for your safety. These things are not allowed to happen. The next day I have a meeting with my solicitor. I go to see my solicitor in prison, and afterwards I'm taken back. And on the way back there's a waiting room. and the door opens of this waiting room, and I see the beard straight away. I'm put and locked in this room with Muslims. I'm locked in, I'm violently beaten, I lose my teeth. Only bonus of it, now I've got some nice beautiful fake teeth, yeah. But I'm beaten and left in this room, and I'm lucky again to have come out of them, yeah. And you couldn't make this up. For a duty of care in a prison system, this is no mistake. This is no mistake. How can this same prison, this same prison I was in 2012, where I wasn't allowed to walk, for me to walk from A to B, the whole prison had to be locked down. How can it go from that to basically putting me on a plane through the Muslim terrorists? How can it go? How can that happen? Now, I had then been moved, after the attack, I'd then been moved to a prison in the south of the country. And I'm serving my time, I then get a visit. When I go and sit in the visiting room, I have two young men about my age in suits. And the first thing they said was, just for the record, only one person knows we're here seeing you. That's the number one governor. No one else knows who we are or why we're visiting you. So you can say what you want when you get back to the rest of the who has visited you.
Sorry to interrupt. You have like 5 more minutes. Okay. And then we're going to do some questions. Is that okay?
Have I gone out? Jesus, it's so... Okay. This was... Alright, on and on. So this... Oh, miles away. There was... So this was a secretive unit based in Scotland Yard called the Met Intelligence Bureau. The first thing they asked me is, will you be willing to work with us when you leave prison? I said, willing to work with you? They said, yeah, we need help tackling people on the far right. You have the trust of many of them. Yeah? The one person in particular that they were worried about was a man called Paul Golding. Me and him don't really see eye to eye. And I've watched what's happened to him since I've come out of custody. They asked me, they wanted information on who he's working with, where his money's coming from. So I basically said to them, hold on, you want me to help you do to him what you've been doing to me? I said, are you mad? I said, why would I want to do that? I said, and if I'm honest, at this moment in my life, when I left prison, at that moment in my life, I'd had so much that I didn't ever want to talk about Islam again. And I said that to them. When I get out of here, I don't want to talk about Islam. I'm going back to work. I'm going to be off my financial restraint you've had me on for 4 years, and I can't wait to get back working. Now, when I was released from prison on this mortgage fraud charge, I was again given licence conditions. On my licence conditions, I wasn't allowed to contact the EDL. Now, this in itself tells me straight away that the case that I've been in prison for is politically motivated because I'm now on conditions not to contact the EDL. I wasn't even allowed to go to a funeral because there was EDL members there. I'd be told I'd be recalled to prison. Now, this Met Intelligence Bureau, when they asked me in prison what I'm going to do when I leave prison, I told them I've still got 7 properties. I'm going to sell, stupidly, I've got 7 properties, I'm going to sell them, use money, but I'm building again. Now, when I come out of prison, I then received a letter from my solicitor saying that I'm being taken to court for seizure of £325,000. And if I don't pay it, I get 5 years in prison. I then get a phone call again. The phone call's from the Met Intelligence Bureau. His name was on it. We can help you out with this. You won't have to pay the money if you agree to sit down and work with us. So now they're trying to put me in a position where I have to work with them. I went to court. I told them in no uncertain terms, on no one's grass, it's never going to happen. I'm then taken to court, and the judge rules that I had £125,000 to the police. I had to sell my house. They had me in checkmate. I had to sell my house and pay them £125,000. As soon as I come out of court, I got a phone call again from the MIB saying, you don't need to pay £2 a month, you agree to talk with us. I again told them I'm not interested. I'm then travelling up the motorway in my car, and I'm pulled in by 3 squad cars, 3 police cars. I'm arrested on burglary this time. Yeah? And at the time, I can't work out what's all this about. I know, I'm leaving my house, I haven't left the motorway, so there's no case against me. So what is this about? And I think because they want drug testing, because if I failed a drug test, they can recall me to prison. And when I got home, I was bailed on burglary. When I got home, my wife said, the prison's been on the phone where I was, you've left some clothes there. She gave me the phone number, which was 0207, so I know that's not the prison number, it's a London number. I ring the number, who's on the phone? MIB. We can help you out with the predicament we're in, Tommy, the burglary charge. I said, I'm not in a predicament, I haven't committed a burglary. They said, well, how's this going to look if this story hits the media? To be honest, I've never spoke, until now, I've never spoke about these things. How's this going to look if this story hits the media? If you get charged when you answer bail in 4 weeks, you're going to do 9 months sitting in prison on remand. Bearing in mind, for me, prison's a very difficult place because it's controlled by Muslim gangs. I honestly sat with my eyes at that point because I thought, I don't know what to do here. I'm being hit from every angle, and now I'm being blackmailed into a position where I have to work as a grassman informant for security services in a field that I don't want to do. And I hear many Muslims, like for example, all the Muslims, Jihadi John and people like that, they've all said they're persecuted, and that's why they've started chopping people's heads off. I feel I've been persecuted for 7 years because of my beliefs and why I started chopping everyone's heads off. I then had an opportunity to speak at Oxford University, which some of you may have seen. Now, before I was due to speak, 4 days before, I was recalled against prison. The police come to my house. Someone sent me a tweet. His name was 1488 Hitler. It was a Nazi. He sent me a tweet saying he's going to break my mother. I sent back saying, you don't need to look for me, I'll meet you 12 o'clock. No threats of violence. This was used as a reason to lock me up again for 28 days. Again, I was put into a prison full of Muslim gangs, full of them. I wrote a 7-page thing to the governor saying, if you put me out there, you're going to get me killed. Yeah? If you walk me onto that ring, which they then still done. Strings were being pulled, definitely. They said, right, Matt, yeah, I'm dead. I'll be recalled again. I managed to give my speech, which if you watch, you'll see my speech where I start off by saying I'm not allowed to speak about the things I wanted to. The things I want to come here and address, I'm not allowed to do so. I was due to speak, this is repetitive again, I was then due to speak at the House of Lords, where again I was going to give this speech to expose what I felt, to tell people what's been going on with the police. I was due to give this speech at the House of Lords. 5 days before I was due to do that, I was again recalled to prison. I was held again. I was again put in with Muslim murderers who were in for cutting off someone's ears and heads. And again, I had to fight for my life. If I'm in a hurry, I'm going to skip forward to get to the summing up. I've come out of prison. Basically, what have I done for all this pressure and for all these things? What have I done? I've simply started highlighting problems. The police have had tactics which have been used against me. Those tactics have changed. Originally, the tactics were to target me. Then my mum, then my wife, now my kid. One of the videos I'm going to share with you, you have to watch it, see the effect this is having on my family. I've been arrested at an airport in front of my children. The last 3 times I've been arrested, I've had dealings with the police. Most recently, I was out having a meal with my family in Cambridge, with my 3 young children. The video you can watch. The police come into the pub I'm in, and they tell me I have to leave the city of Cambridge. And I say, why? What do you mean I have to leave the city of Cambridge? I'm with my kids. You have to leave the city of Cambridge because we believe your presence here will provoke violence. What law is that? And they followed us, and my children were crying hysterically. And my children couldn't understand this. And for years they've played with my emotions, they've played with my wife's emotions, my mother's emotions, and now, the last 3 times, they're playing with my children's emotions. Most recently, I was in France, and my wife rang crying, saying the police are here again. They've come to my house, I have committed no crime. They're not saying I committed a crime. They come to my house to give me a football banning order for saying that my presence may provoke, be a catalyst, my anti-Muslim views. I don't have anti-Muslim views, I have anti-Islamic views, but my presence may provoke violence at football matches. This went to court, and I was acquitted again. My conclusion is, I have my views, other people have their views. I'm not here to force my views on anyone. But what the left need to understand, who have laughed the whole way through these stories that have happened to me, if they can do this to me, they can do this to you. They can do this to them. Is this free? Does this sound like I've been free over the last 7 years? If you heard the story and you didn't hear my accent or see my image, you'd read this story and think it's a story from China or Russia. I'm always sat thinking, what next? So as a recap, I've been ruined financially. I've had the amount of pressure put on my family, untold police raids, fabricated charges, constant harassment, maps given to me for where I can and can't go. What have I done to deserve this? I've told the truth about Islam. I've expressed my free speech, my opposition to jihad. I've been proven right time and time again. All the things I've spoke about, all the things I've expressed, and I know people have judged me, but history will judge me. History will judge me as good. This main speech is a warning to America. The problems we face are on their way to view. I'd like to give this speech in the hope that in 10 years, an American student isn't sitting telling American people of the 10 years of hell they've had of persecution, fake persecution, for going against the status quo. Thanks for letting me talk at your establishment. I hope it's enlightened you to some of the problems we face in our country, and I'm open to any questions you want to give. Sorry.
If you guys could line up or just come over here and we'll just do one at a time.
Hi, Tommy. So I'm a freshman at Columbia. My name's Kareem, and I'd like to thank you for your talk. I just have a few questions regarding your perspective on Islam and whether or not you think it was dictated by the fact that you grew up in Luton, which is, as you said, and as generally, like speaking news articles tend to say, Luton's a pretty bad, quote-unquote, place to live in the UK, and you described it as being ghetto, and you described it as not being a very nice place. You described it as being a rather extreme part of the UK for Islam. Don't you think that shapes your perspectives in a really negative way? Because you're only going to get a very negative interpretation of Islam by being exposed to people who follow Islam in some place like Luton, for example?
No, what I think it does is I think that Luton is a blueprint for the rest of Britain. In Luton we have 30 to 40% Muslims. It's a percentage, it's a numbers there. In other areas where they have 3% Muslims, they don't have the problems we face. When it's 30 and 40%, they will. Because it's not just Luton. It's every area that's got 30, 40% Muslims faces the same problems that we face in Luton. Luton's a blueprint for other towns and cities in England and in Europe. And they're also blueprints for what's coming to America. You've been quite lucky in the immigration that you've had from Islamic countries. Usually to fit your immigration system, they've been quite educated. Now, Luton, the majority of the Pakistani Muslims there are from Kashmir, a very backwards view on living, a very extreme area as well, unfortunately. And that's why Luton was chosen sort of, in certain areas, not just been chosen, they've been allowed to grow and radicalise for years through Saudi funding and things like this. But I think it's going to be a real view, a real perspective on the problems that everyone else is going to face. Because I know what it's like living in those areas. And again, I have to stress to you, because being brought up in Luton, some of the best people I've met growing up in my life have been Muslims. Yeah? Some of the best people. I'm not saying all Muslims are bad. Yeah? What I'm saying is that the ideology that comes with it, that promotes more of a gang, more of a male-dominant way of life. If you see a Polish man, he's with a Polish woman. If you see a Muslim man, he's with another 8. Yeah? That's just standard. I've gone through, as I talk about the divide in the town, at my school, you had the Muslim playground and the non-Muslim playground. Yeah? That's the divide, straight. We didn't choose that. We haven't done that. Because every other culture and every other group all just integrate and sit together. There's one that has failed. When people in the UK and our politicians say multiculturalism has failed, that's just a weak, coward way of saying Islam's failed. Because no other cultures have failed to integrate into the British way of life. The Sikhs haven't, the Jews haven't, no one else has. So, but again, I just want to stress that. I don't see people as the problem, I see the idea as the problem.
Okay, I just want to clarify one thing. I'm actually from the Middle East. I live in Bahrain, which is a primarily Muslim country. The majority of people there is Muslim. So I think this notion of the higher the percentage of Muslims, the more potential there is for radicalism. I'm not sure if you implied that, but if you did, I have to disagree, simply because I come from a country which, as I said, is primarily Muslim, and if anything, it's incredibly westernized. There's no such thing as segregation between Muslims and non-Muslims.
But in Luton, everything's segregated. And you know, it's funny you say that because when I was talking at Oxford University, there was a student there from Pakistan, and she said that when she comes into the Muslim communities in the UK, she had to run out to get to the non-Muslim community because she was so intimidated by how radical they were. She said that she doesn't even wear a hijab. She doesn't even cover her hair in Pakistan, which I couldn't believe because.
Neither was my mother in Bahrain. I mean.
Well, see, for me, to the Islam that I know, the Islam that's in my town, 5-year-old schoolgirls are all forced to wear the hijab. Yeah? The amount of women in the burqa, again, it's because we have Salafism, Wahhabism as quite a dominant force. In the UK, we have Deobandi as a huge dominant force, ultra-conservative sects of Islam. I obviously understand all sects are not the same, Muslims are.
Okay, I understand that. So when you talk about Islam, you're talking about the most extreme version. I just want to be clear about that because the Islam you're describing is not the Islam I know. So I've been to Lebanon, I've been to Saudi Arabia, I've been to Bahrain, and I've been to Dubai, and the countries I've been to, the Islam you're describing is the most radical form that I've personally never experienced in person. You
were doing Saudi Arabia if you were.
Saudi Arabia is probably the best. Realistically,
you would experience it if you was gay in Saudi Arabia. You would experience it if you thought America was gay.
But I mean, for the most part, countries I've been to in the Middle East haven't had this form of extremist, like Islam being perpetuated. Yes.
Thank you for asking the question. Does anyone else have a question?
Hi, Mr. Robinson, Marwan here, born and bred in London, studying here obviously. So you have shared a wealth of anecdotes, some of which we can certainly sympathise with you. You've had your sort of personal reasons to kind of be against the state of affairs in the UK. I have a question about your perception on Islam and your narrative of freedom. You say the Islam that you know, and yet you talk about a singular truth of Islam. What is that truth of Islam, is my first question. And two, is the curtailment of British Muslims or British Islam, because they're so intertwined, is that necessary for the freedom that we fight for?
What would I say is the truth about Islam is that Islam will not integrate or assimilate into the UK. It has failed across the whole of Europe. Muslims have created ghettos in every single country. It's failed. It's not worked. It's not going to work. Yeah? The sooner we understand that, the sooner we realise that, the sooner I think we need to limit the spread of Islam. That's what, and I'm honest in it. Yeah? I don't think, when you talk about the truth of Islam, I've looked into the Prophet Muhammad. I don't think he's a moral man. I think some of the things he's done were barbaric, violent, extreme. I don't think he should be held as a moral compass for anybody. So I openly say that. That doesn't mean I want to insult you. I want to insult any Muslims. But Islam is not the religion of peace. It never has been. It never will be. When we talk about where do we see true Islam, Saudi Arabia, where they stone women, kill gays. What I see is that the ideology is what's going to cause us a problem. I personally think Muslims are victims of Islam. They are brainwashed in it from the age of 4, from a very young age. They cannot leave it. It's punishable by death. I see all of these things as a huge problem. And I talk about it because I've seen the destruction of my town. And Islam, we're not getting any better. The problems in our country are only going to get worse. When we realise that, the demographic will change, all of these problems are going to get a lot worse. Now, for it to get a lot worse, we have to be able to talk about it. I should be free to express myself and give criticism to it. And did I address your other question? What was the other question?
The other question is the curtailment of British Muslims and British Islam important or necessary for your vision of freedom?
What
you need to restrict the freedom of others to ensure your freedom, the freedom that we fight for. Did you hear?
Do I deserve freedom? They deserve freedom.
No, I mean, do you have to prevent that freedom to ensure your freedom?
No, I would just prevent Sharia. That's what I prevent. Because the European Court of Human Rights done an in-depth study in 2007 and found that Sharia law is incompatible with Western freedom and democracy due to their views on women, their views on homosexuals, So I would outlaw Sharia and all aspects of it. And if a Muslim wants to be a practicing Muslim without living or enforcing Sharia, fine. Fine with me.
So just to clarify, your problem is with Sharia law, not the British Islamic community.
No, not with individual Muslims. No. Well, I can't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with people. I have a problem with an idea. I think that currently in our country we should have no Saudi money, no Qatari money, no Iranian money. How are we letting these barbaric backward places fund schools, have head teachers who currently, last week, one of the main mosques in London were handing out leaflets saying that we should kill people or insult their prophet. The main mosque. We've got a man travelling to our country next week to talk at schools who thinks we should kill all homosexuals. These views are being propagated widespread against our values, and I think we need to tackle them.
I agree with you. I'm going to leave the floor for another question, but just one final point. Should you not be directing your criticism towards the British state for letting that sort of Saudi involvement, as opposed to the British Muslims in the Luton community who live in the poorest part of Luton and one of the most deprived parts of Britain?
You are right. I don't blame Muslims for wanting Sharia. We have 100 Sharia courts in the UK. I don't blame Muslims for wanting Sharia. They're born into it. They're told that they need to have it. They're told Islam has to conquer the world. They're told that they have to further Islam. I do blame our weak, coward, pathetic governments that allow it and appease it. But I think we need to stand up for our values, who we are, and protect our own identity. And currently we're losing that. Come to Luton. I mean, come to towns like Luton, and you can just see the problem. We're as divided as you can get. And that's not through our arguing, but yeah, I do blame the government, but I think Islam, I don't think we should be promoting Islam. For example, the promotion, I don't think we should be promoting it, I think we should be calling it out for its backward ideas. And its violent teachings.
Do you have any more questions? Tommy, do you see us?
No, I can't see you. No.
You can do that.
Can I tell me how to see you?
Okay, there we go. Sorry. Okay, now we can see you. We just wanted to make sure that you guys see all of me.
One sec. Allez, nice. That I'm looking at one of them. Lovely. That's all right. There you go. Now I can see you.
So I'm from Plymouth and a big Plymouth Argyle fan. Sorry about that.
That's all right. You're having a good season, aren't you?
We are, yeah. So you said in the past that you're sorry, effectively, for creating an us and them kind of divide between, British communities and the British Muslim community. And then you speak tonight and you use the word Muslim interchangeably with kind of any form of practicer of the Islamic faith. You effectively take aim at the legal system that many Muslims follow, countries where many Muslims live, and it seems to me to be a completely artificial distinction, which, if allowed to remain logical, just boils down to I don't have any problem with individual Muslims unless they practice Islam. So this lecture is meant to be about free speech, so I guess I should maybe phrase this as a question about that. Isn't one of the biggest threats to free speech not state or police repression, but using words so irresponsibly as to create meaningfully false impressions among the people who are hearing it? And what can you do to address that?
Yeah, can you explain at which part I use Muslim and Islam in that way? What did I say about Muslims?
It's just in my discussion. Certainly in my...
I see the problem. I see the problem that most people can't understand that criticising Islam is different to hating Muslims.
So could you explain how it's different then? Because I was confused by that.
How it's different?
Yeah.
Well, Islam is an idea. It's an idea, and it's a bad idea. Yeah? So me criticising Islam doesn't mean I hate Muslims. Muslims are people. Hating people is not good. Yeah? Disliking an idea that promotes intolerance, phobia, barbaric ways, killing of women, incites hatred against us as non-Muslims. Being against that is quite rational and normal to pick up with it. But I don't like hatred against Muslims.
So where does a person where does a person stop and their ideas begin? And are they not kind of one and the same thing? If you take aim at one system of ideas so kind of comprehensively, are you not thereby denigrating pretty much everyone that subscribes to it?
It's a bad idea. So me calling out a bad idea. If I see Islam which says you need 4 male witnesses for a rape, that's very bad. Yeah? If I see Islam which says we should execute homosexuals, that's a bad idea. Yeah? So me calling out that bad idea, you think means I hate Muslims.
So is Christianity a bad idea?
I think most religions are quite bad ideas. Yeah.
We have about 10 more minutes already now, so we have quick questions.
Hello, I have a quick question. Sort of on the Christian tangent, we have had here a lot of shootings by people who have subscribed to a version of Christianity that a lot of people don't have. Particularly I'm thinking of the Robert Deere when he shot out the Planned Parenthood, and a lot of people condemned him when he said, well, I'm just following my Christian belief that abortion should be illegal and it's murder of babies. And so, by the logic that Islam has some ideas that you want to touch, and therefore to practice Islam is a bad idea, should people here who practice Christianity be criticized for following Christianity?
I think you're talking about a small number of people. When I talk about bad ideas in Islam, we have an entire state in the Middle East which is killing, murdering, raping and pillaging in the name of Islam. We have groups across the entire world, where America, Kenya, all across the world, blowing things up daily in the name of Islam. But you're talking about a couple of strange Christian guys who are trying to... I don't really see a comparison, and I don't... some of these Christian groups because we don't really have it in England.
Well, one would argue that those Muslim groups are building up Muslim buildings in the name of Islam, which is kind of insane.
I just think to try and compare the two is a bit mental, really, because Muslims are blowing things up every day. But
yes, but they're not. It's not like when they're over there, they're blowing up, like particularly less Christian or Western buildings. They're blowing up. What they argue is who they're fighting for, but they're blowing them up too. So
if you look at ISIS and Boko Haram, who are taking sexual slaves, in Nigeria, kidnapping hundreds of sexual slaves. Now the reason they give, quite clearly, from their own mouths, is that Allah has commanded them to. Now that comes because there's 14 times in the Quran that they can take non-Muslim women as sexual slaves. So for me, that's a problem stemming from Islam. In the UK, 90% of the convictions for sexual exploitation of young girls in gangs are Muslim men. Only 4% of the UK is Muslim. Now I see a link between these two things with Islam. I see that Islam gives them an excuse and tells them they're allowed to do it as long as they're doing it to kafar non-Muslim women.
I see that most Muslim men are committing those sexual exploits, because you said that most of the time when it's charged is Muslim men, that's not the same as most Muslim men engage in those crimes.
No, what I said is 90% of the convictions are Muslim men from a population of 4%. Means they're hugely overrepresented. And that's really a problem.
That's a quick question.
Yeah, it's a quick one. It's how you doing? I have a question about a friend of yours, Ajim Chowdhury. He was recently arrested for supporting Islamic State, and it was said that he was using the laws within your country to kind of get around being arrested, which were the same laws that were arresting you numerous times. Are you seeing a change in the state's opinion, or is this just a lucky case?
But if I'm honest, I don't think arresting Andrew Chowdhury does anything. Andrew Chowdhury is currently in jail, living a completely halal life, recruit and radicalise for people. We have a problem where we now have an enemy of foreign combatants who to kill us and attack. We're treating these people as East and prisoners of war. I don't think there should be a military soldier, foreign fighters, and health field is over. I don't think they, as I told you, we have imams and scholars coming into this country every week, citing hatred, calling for Israel, Jews, homosexuals. If our country was in any way, David Cameron said, he set up a government 5-year task force to stop Islamic extremism. Since he set that up, 2,000 British have gone to fight for ISIS. 500 of them are back home walking. Some of them are in my home. Is our government got? No. That's how I think they say the right. There's so much that could be to try and limit the problem. We're going to so much. I think we're doing. You're not doing.
Last question.
Hi. So when we're talking about free speech, we also, just because we have the right to say something doesn't mean that we should, right? And so I think whenever we talk about free speech, we also need to talk about our responsibility with the words that we say. And I would say that some of the words that you've said tonight are downright hateful, false, or hyperbolic. How will you take responsibility for the against Muslims in your country?
What I'd ask you is please give me an example of what I've said.
Islam is not and cannot assimilate. It is not a peaceful religion. It's caused the destruction of my town. People are barbaric that practice this religion. All of that is hate speech.
No. Islam is not religion. Is not hate. Muhammad was a warmonger who beheaded 600 people a day. Okay? He raped women. Pointing these facts out is not the truth. It's not hate. When it's not, okay? It's not. Me identifying a problem and telling you why we have that problem is not hate speech. I didn't say all Muslims are barbaric. I said that it is a barbaric way of thinking. Muhammad was a barbarian.
Tommy, we want to thank you for coming. It's been a pleasure to have you, and we're glad that we get hosts and speakers such like you, and it has had an effect in your community and sort of speaking your own words and being okay about speaking them, even though you've been harassed, oppressed by the police.
Thank you, Tom.